Hi, I'm Brenda McGee, and this is Paranormal Encounters. If you've had any experiences or that you want to share with me or come on the show, you can email me at paranormalencounterstv9@gmail.com. And I want to welcome back a very special guest, Kira Stiles. Thank you so much for coming back.
Well, thank you for having me back.
We had so many things to talk about. I wanted to have you on because I know you just have so many things to tell us. Like I said before, I know you're a medium. I know you're a paranormal investigator and also a writer. So the last time you were here, we just skimmed the little about the Lizzie Borden House. So if you wouldn't mind, I'd love to go back to that.
Of course.
Because I know, like I said, I've been there also, and I'm telling you, there is a lot of energy there. A lot of energy.
I could not agree more.
Now,
sure.
Let me ask you this, though, because I've seen so many, it's been on TV with different paranormal people going there and stuff like that. I know they do seances there. I know they do the Ouija board there. And what I've experienced is, when they're doing all that kind of stuff, they're actually bringing more spirits in there. And actually, what I've come across is Mr. Borden, because he's very nasty there, because I've come head to head with him, that he actually will trap them there. I know it's crazy. I know people, it's crazy, but it happens. I live for the paranormal. I've had so many experiences. Can you tell me any that you had there? I know there's some stuff that happened with you.
We deal with the crazy on a daily basis. Well, I know there was this one time I was in Lizzie's room where I ended up halfway across the room with a strange feeling in the middle of my chest, almost like somebody had just kicked me. I think
I was there when that happened to you.
I
heard a smash, and I came and you were laying on the floor. You were at one point of the room, and then when I heard the smash, you had been thrown.
Yeah, I was just walking through the room, minding my own business, or so I thought, and the next thing I knew, I was across the room. Because I too had gone head-to-head with Mr. Borden, and he is just, I don't know if it's that he just doesn't like women, just being of the 1800s, and that's, how they more or less looked upon women back then, or, independent women, oh, not that. Or the fact that we're modern women,
right,
go in there with jeans, and women aren't supposed to dress like that as far as he's concerned. But he does, there is some nastiness, I guess you could say, in association with him and anything that's around him. As a matter of fact, in his room, he was well known for leaving his change laying around almost as a test, just to see if anybody would steal it. Well, still to this day, people will walk through his room and leave some change just to get on his good side.
Oh, wow.
Oh, for sure. And, I mean, obviously, I don't know if everybody can feel it, but a lot of people do know the fact that he's like that. He's just he was in life a stern man, and it stands to reason. If you're that way in life, you're going to be that way in death.
And I honestly think that the way that he was murdered, number one, he had no idea, because he died while he was taking the nap.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
So, and I know that just the meanness and the evilness that he definitely is there. And I know I've come in contact with the first Mrs. Borden, not the one that actually was killed in the house. I haven't come in contact with her, but the other Mrs. Borden, I did. And she's the nicest, the sweetest energy that is there.
Because I have as well, not Abby. Abby was his second wife, who was Lizzie and Emma's stepmother. She's the one that was murdered in the house.
Right.
The first Mrs. Borden, Emma and Lizzie's mother.
Right.
Yeah, she. I have to agree with that. I felt her in the house myself, and she is the sweetest thing.
She is, and she's a protector there too.
She is,
because she knows, when we sense energy. We see people that have passed and things like that. We've had experiences. So it's almost like she knows, and I know when she would come, she would put her hand right on my shoulder as if to say, be careful, something's coming.
Yes.
And it's always Mr. Borden. And the thing that I get aggravated with when I investigated there is some of the people, when they provoke, they have no idea. And I remember sitting in the upstairs bedroom, the third floor, all the way to the end where they say the kids, you can hear the kids. I remember sitting there on the floor with a bunch of other people. And I was with a group. I wasn't with our team. And there was a guy that just kept tormenting Mr. Borden, saying all of these really bad, nasty things. And I could feel Mr. Borden's energy coming towards the room. And I saw this man get physically slapped where his head like flew to the side. So that was probably the most intense experience that I had there, was that. But I know you've had, I know you had to leave, you actually had to leave the house at one point in one of your investigations, didn't you?
Yes, we were in the room where Abby had been found in Uncle John's room that he had stayed in the night before, Lizzie's Uncle John, and they were using a Ouija board, and okay, yeah, it's just a game, and so honestly, if you don't know what you're doing, don't do it.
Yes.
Trust me.
Yes.
It's a lot more powerful than you think.
Thank you for that, because I am adamant about that, because most of the investigations are because somebody used a Ouija board.
Oh, yes.
But go ahead, finish your story.
So they were saying they used an Ouija board, and they asked if I wanted to be a part of it, but I just, as a matter of fact, we were sitting exactly where she was found, on that side of the bed on the floor. And I just kind of shook my head because I was just going to watch, see what happened. Before I knew it, I started to feel this pain in my chest. So being, a medium and being able to connect with the other side, I figured maybe somebody was there that had died of a heart attack. Mm-hmm. And I was just about to say that before I could, the pain intensified. I mean, I couldn't even breathe. It was so bad. And I was like clutching onto my chest, and finally somebody looked up and noticed me, and she was like, "Are you okay?" And the funny thing was, of course, they were still playing with the Ouija board. It shot up to no. And she looked down at the board, and she's like, "Oh, I wasn't talking to you." And I said, "Oh, it knows. Trust me, it knows." I mean, it was so bad that I almost lost consciousness. I was starting to, I couldn't see, I couldn't talk.
Right.
I mean, I was asking for help, but it was like, nobody could hear me because I was so quiet. It hurt so bad. But somebody had finally got me out of there, and I barely made it downstairs and outside. And of course, I got outside, and despite the fact that, okay, it was February and it was cold, yes, and I probably should have been shivering, but remember that energy we talked about last time that courses right through you? Oh, right. Yes, it was intense.
People don't realize sometimes, with us being, psychic and mediums, that we feel how they pass sometimes. And sometimes we can't separate from that pain. So it's, people don't realize that it can be very painful. So a lot of times you have to work through it until you acknowledge the right end, the spirit or whatever, and then they'll break off once they're acknowledged. But sometimes they just don't care.
Oh, yeah, and I had another thing like that happen to me in a different place. It was the Houghton Mansion in North Adams.
I love the Houghton Mansion.
We were up on the third floor, and somebody had actually seen a shadow figure coming up the stairs. He got so excited he called everybody, and everybody could see it. There was 8 of us, and all 8 of us saw this shadow figure walking up the stairs. And the way the stairs were, it was like stairs and then a landing, and then the rest of the stairs to come up to the third floor. So we're all watching it, and I watch it circling around the landing, and it stopped at the bottom of the landing. And I'm sitting there watching it, and everybody's like, "Oh my God, did you see that? They're all fluttering over. Did you see it? Did you see it?" And I'm just standing here watching it. The next thing I know, this thing comes running up the stairs at me.
Oh my gosh.
And pushes me back against the wall. And at this point, I'm like, yeah, okay, that's thinking to myself, okay, yeah, that's funny. I couldn't move. And the more I was like, okay, yeah, that's the more I joked, I guess, with it, the more it pushed me against the wall, almost like, notice me, notice me, notice me. And finally I was like, okay, fine, I know you're there.
Yeah.
If you got something to tell me what you want to tell me, whatever, but all right, I understand. You're there. You can And as soon as that thought went through my head, down on the floor, almost somebody said you felt like a sack of potatoes.
Oh my God. Now, was it a black shadow, or was it just like an apparition of like energy? Could other people see it, or?
I don't know if I don't think anybody else saw it come up the stairs.
But they could physically see that you were.
Because it was almost like I was being held from behind.
Okay.
Like there was like a big magnet in the wall behind me, and my body was steel. I mean, that's all I can think. I was being held from behind. So maybe it had run past me and into the wall behind me and pulled me back that way.
Right.
But it definitely wanted me to know that it was there, and it definitely wanted me to,
acknowledge it.
Acknowledge it, exactly. I am here, and we are here, and you better acknowledge me. So
some of them do. They want to be known.
And when I finally did, it let me go. Like, okay, yep, I'm here, no problem.
Yeah. Mr. Houghton is an energy to be reckoned with there also.
Oh, yes,
what is with these male, energies that are like high up in the home and things like that? I remember doing the Houghton Mansion, and that place was just probably my favorite and the most amazing place that
there
I've
is
ever
some
investigated.
really amazing, intense energy in that house.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a lot to connect with.
It's just
there was
sad
a lot
that
to
it's
feel,
not,
but
you can't investigate it anymore.
Yeah.
That's sad.
For sure.
But there was a lot of, I remember the stories from that, just people, their experiences. Now, was there another place that, I remember you writing about another place. I'm trying to think. What was another place that you did? Because you travel sometimes.
I ended up at Eastern State Penitentiary down in Philadelphia. There was an interesting story to go along with that. We were in death row, and it was a big event set up by Darkness Radio, and there were quite a few big paranormal names there. So there was a lot of people. So but there were about 20, 25 people per group. And at one point we decided, let's do EVP, and everybody sit down, and everybody ask, not everybody, but ask a question. We'll ask about 5 questions, and we'll play it back. So of course, like I said, there's many people. I'm thinking to myself, there's no way I'm going to be able to jump in with a question. So I'm just kind of wandering around and reading all the stuff on the walls about the history of it. The next thing I know, I felt this rush. And I felt a cold, stabbing pain in my stomach that was so intense, it sent me backwards into the wall. And then I felt like something was dripping, like blood, out of the wound, I guess you could say, in my stomach. I felt like I'd been stabbed,
Right.
more or less. And, of course, obviously I hadn't. I mean, I even checked, and I'm like, okay, there's no blood. But I was so amazed by it, and they were still doing the EVP session. So I stood up, and I finally had gotten past it and figured out more or less what happened. And I stood up, and I went over to the group of them, and I was able to get my question in, and I said, did somebody just stab me? So, of course, you can't hear anything. They play it back, and you can hear, I did it.
Oh, wow.
Right after I asked it. So that was kind of scary. That was pretty freaky. It was like, wow.
Did they open up that whole place for you guys, or just certain sections? Because I know it's huge, because I've been there. I haven't investigated there, but I did the tour there. And
they more or less, they opened up the whole place, but certain sections of the whole place.
because a lot of it's decrepit.
Because we were able to go on death row, but there was a lot more to it that we could have, but we couldn't get there because it was all fenced in and everything. So we were at death row, but we didn't get to see the entire place. The entire part, the wing or whatever, or the building that was death row. That's where the death row inmates stayed. But yeah, because we went on a lot of the other cell blocks, but we were only allowed down so far or whatever. So, we were allowed just about everywhere, but not quite everywhere.
Yeah. Don't you love that?
Oh, yeah.
Depends on who the person is. Sometimes they'll sneak you in, and sometimes, things like that. Now, I want to talk about mediumship with you, because I know that you've always been sensitive to energy and things like that. When did you first really admit, oh my gosh, I'm a medium?
Somebody had to tell me.
And that's how it is, when someone says something.
The story from Slater Mill, as far as, remember me talking about that last time, as far as the little girl, interacting with me. Like, as I was saying that time, there was a medium there that had said, she's overwhelmed by all these people. Before she said that, I could feel the little girl being like she was scared. I could feel her hiding behind me. I could feel that she was scared. I could feel her like, oh my goodness, there are so many people here. What am I going to do? And this is before this woman ever said anything. And, there were a couple other things that night. When I was in the Wilkinson Mill, I believe it was, I remember like all of a sudden feeling so sad, like I wanted to cry. And the words, "my baby's dead," kept going through my head.
Oh, jeez.
And like I said, I wanted to cry, and just like that snap, it was all over, like, okay, you can go, and the thought was gone. Everything was gone.
Right.
But it was like these words were so clear, and these thoughts, and what was going on. And I told the story, I'd written it down, and somebody looked at me, and he said, somebody said, well, why don't you write something about being a medium? And I said, what do you mean? And he's like, well, didn't you read any? I mean, you wrote it. Didn't you read any of it? This is what's happening here.
Right.
You're a medium.
It's such a scary title.
It is. It is. Because, I mean, like I was saying last time, I'm a skeptic.
Yeah.
And I always have been. And I mean, even getting into the paranormal and even having stuff happening, it was still like, the medium thing. I was like, yeah, okay,
Yeah.
You're just guessing, you're cold reading, whatever. But that's not how it is.
It's nice when you're, because we go by feelings and things like that, but unless it's caught on like the EVP recorder or things like that. But it's so cool when you're validated, when you're saying, hey, did you hear that? And then in the recording, it'll be someone saying something, or did you hear this?
Oh, for sure.
But it's so hard because people think that, like we just met someone recently about saying, do you know a real medium?
Yeah.
And it is. It is a scary thing because there are people out there that claim to be, and they're not. But there is so many paranormal teams nowadays that have people that are sensitive, that are mediums and things like that. And not that it makes it any better, but it does when you think about it, because a lot of things that people don't know, and then you validate it, especially in the home.
Okay, we're not always right, but trust me that there's so much stuff that I should not know, that I have no business knowing, that I do know. And I don't know how I know it. It wasn't like I read it somewhere. It wasn't like I picked it up somewhere. It's just all of a sudden, boom, this stuff's in my mind.
Yeah.
And it's something like completely obscure that I would have no idea.
Right.
But there it is.
Yeah, definitely.
So, I mean, yes, we exist. We're out there. We are real. And we might be far and few between, but there are real ones out there.
Exactly. Some people just, they give people bad names.
That
and
they
you
do.
know what, though? Eventually it catches up with them or whatever. But, I think that it's important because you get more history and you get the story behind it. I know sometimes when I go into places, it's like it's a movie that's playing out. Like when I went to the Lizzie Borden House, I saw how things played out. I didn't tell many people because they would be like, really, that's who you think did it? Or it's like, that's how I saw it.
Yes.
But I would only tell my friends that I know would believe me, but actually people thought the same thing that I did. So sometimes it's like, it's never been solved, but I think if it was, that would be cool because then
it just starts happening. It's not like you're sitting there going, okay, what could have happened, and maybe this happened.
Exactly.
No, it just starts playing in your mind, like you said, like a movie, like you're watching a movie.
Right. What's your favorite piece of equipment?
I'm going to say my recorder.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, because
there's so much it picks up.
Yeah.
In the background. And especially when you can rule out, okay, that wasn't just the cat running by, or that wasn't a car going by, or, that was actually a voice, that was somebody saying something, that,
Right.
When you can actually look at it and be like, did you hear, listen to this and tell me what you hear, and the person says to you, oh, I hear, the same exact thing you heard.
Exactly.
That's when it's like, wow,
now,
that's
what
awesome.
was the fort that you did? Didn't you do
We went down to Fort Taber in New Bedford. I've been down there a couple of times.
What do you think of that?
That's actually, it's pretty intense. It's you know what? It's a nice place though. The thing with it was never associated with any wars. No wars were ever fought there. So it wasn't like there's like bad energy there. There's definitely energy there, but I'd have to call it all good energy.
Yeah.
Before I went there, I actually had a visit from one of the spirits that was there. And I didn't realize it at first because this was back in the day before I was ready to admit that I was a medium. But I got a name clearly, and I could see him clearly. And I went there a couple of days later, and they have a museum in there with pictures of a lot of soldiers, especially from the area, in just about every war that America's ever fought. And I was drawn right to it. I walked in, and I walked to this picture, and there was this guy that I had seen with the name that I had gotten. I was blown away.
Gotta love when that happens.
But I mean, I feel like he was like, I guess you'd say kind of like a guardian angel type. Mm-hmm. I mean, he was protective.
Yeah.
He just wanted to say hi. He wanted to let me know he was there, and he just wanted to keep me protected for whatever I needed. But like I said, the place, it didn't seem to really any dark energy involved with it. Energy, definitely, for sure.
Right.
But it's a nice place. It's a beautiful place to visit. And if you're a paranormal investigator, it makes it even that much more worthwhile. So.
Now, do you have a dream place that you want to investigate? Or have you pretty much done every one that you wanted to do?
No. I mean, we all have our little paranormal bucket list. Eventually, I want to see maybe if I can try to make it out to Estes, Colorado. Goodness, I can't remember the name of the hotel out there. The one that The Shining took place in, Stephen King's The Shining.
My last guest said
Stanley,
the same
Stanley
thing.
Hotel, that's what it is.
The Stanley Hotel. My last guest said the same thing, that was his. And I said to him, do you think it's all a hype because of the movie, or do you really think that those energies are really there?
I've heard a lot of stories.
Yeah.
That, I mean, okay, it could be the movie, seeing how it came out in, 1980, I think it was. So, yeah. I mean, it's been around for quite a while. People obviously know the stories and whatnot. But I have heard quite a few stories from just regular, normal people that go in there and...
Just to say you did it.
Well, for sure.
I mean, they make movies out of everything, so there has to be a place that, there has to be some activity there, because why would, maybe some of them, weren't good, right stories or whatever, but other than that.
Exactly. Well... So even as Hollywood as it is, there's always some basic story behind it that, is actually the truth. Dig deep enough and you will find the truth.
I'll tell you, there was one place that I did, and I can't say the name because they want to be kept private or whatever, but I think that was one of the most intense investigations that I want to go back, because full apparition, and just the EVPs alone that I got was 120 of them.
Oh, yes.
And a lot of them were so good. But I'll tell you, there was one time that I really got unnerved. I think it was in Easton. I think it was a home where this little girl just disappeared. They never found her. But you would hear in the house, there was like this crawl space. It was one of those old homes. You would hear banging and screaming all the way down the walls. And it was just, you would hear them coming down the stairs, like you would hear little footsteps and then bangs behind her. And I got so unnerved one time, I was going to take a picture and didn't realize that the camera was facing me. And I took pictures, and it went, the light, and we laughed about it. But that was the only time that I actually really ever had that much experience where the screaming and the yelling, and those people stayed in that home. They didn't want any blessing done. They didn't want anything. It was strange. But down in the basement area, they had huge blocks of limestone. And then in part of the walls, there was clothing, like ripped clothing, like you can see cemented, hanging out of the walls. Very strange.
That is very strange.
Yeah.
I mean, from what I understand, that there is some belief that stuff like limestone, stuff like that, is actually kind of like a magnet to the spirit world.
Right.
And they're more apt to gain energy from it and appear like that. But I mean, being a paranormal investigator, I have to say that every one of us is probably at least one area that we can say that, yes, I was drawn to it, and yes, I want to go back. Yeah. Regardless of what happened.
Exactly.
Or happens, I want to go back.
Well, Kira, time is running out. I thank you again for coming here. It was great having you. I loved your stories. And if anyone out there wants to contact Kira, you can email me at paranormalencounterstv9@gmail.com. And thank you all for watching the show, and hope to see you next time. Thanks, Kira.
Thank you.